Here in the United States, Monday is tax day, the annual deadline for us all to get our books in order and pay our share to the government. Most of us dread this day, with many saying government is just too big and taxes too, well, taxing. But do American taxpayers really have it so bad compared to other countries? A common way to compare who pays what is to look at the so-called marginal tax rate. That's the rate on a nation's highest income tax bracket. Now, the U.S. charges top earners a 35% personal tax rate, putting it somewhere in the middle of the bunch. Now, compare that to the top end of the spectrum. That would be Aruba, which takes in 59% of its top earners' pay. Aruba is followed by Sweden and Denmark. On the other end, with the lowest rates, marginal tax rates, that is, Macedonia, Bulgaria, and Albania. They all charge just about 10%. Another measure is to compare how much taxes countries collect as a percentage of their total GDP. The U.S. actually falls near the bottom of this pile. Revenues from personal taxes make up only about a quarter of the national economy. Compare that to the 34% average of OECD countries, or better yet, measure it against the group's top tax collector, Denmark, at nearly 50%. So given this global comparison, we ask the question, is the American public getting its money's worth? To discuss that, I'm joined here in the studio by Mark Levine. He's a commentator, analyst, and host of the Washington-based radio show, The Inside Scoop. He also has in his pocket the Constitution. And from New York, we have TJ Walker. He's the founder and managing editor of the media website, The Daily National. He's also a regular commentator and analyst on such issues. And the only reason why I bring that up, Mark, is I've never gotten through an interview where you haven't pulled it out.
I don't need to yet, but I'm ready. I'm ready when you are.
Well, should American taxpayers be complaining when they compare their rates to other countries? And I'll start with you, Mark.
Well, I think it's wrong actually to look at the aggregate of American taxpayers because we are taxed so differently. Some of us are grossly undertaxed and some of us are overtaxed. And we have an economy where the top 1% got 93% of the nation's wealth. I think the top 1% is grossly undertaxed in America, while payroll taxes definitely take their bite.
All right, TJ, let me ask you the same question. What do you think?
The wealthiest of Americans are undertaxed, there's no doubt about it. You can talk about 35% tax rates all day long, but we know what rich people really pay. We saw what Mitt Romney paid last year, in a year when he knew everyone was looking at him. He still only paid 13.9% of his income in taxes. As Warren Buffett says, even his secretary pays more than Warren Buffett does. And the wealthy have done a great job through their lobbyists, through their loopholes, wiggling out of paying. As that conservative patron saint, Leona Helmsley, once said, only the little people pay taxes.
Well, you brought up Warren Buffett, so let me throw that out because that's the president himself came out with his blueprint, and he's brought up the Warren
Buffett tax.
Yes. Is that going to get any traction?
You know what?
Is it a good idea?
It should. Of course it is. Look, what the Buffett tax is the fact that hedge fund managers, who are a very small, very elite group, who make hundreds of millions of dollars, or in Warren Buffett's case, likely in the billions of dollars, and they pay at a lower tax rate, as TJ points out, than their secretaries. They're not even paying the same rate that other rich people are paying. It makes no sense at all. It's a specific tax break to rich people, and this is an example of what rich people can do. They can lobby Congress. They have the power to hire their own lobbyists and get special deals that the average American does not. I would just add to what TJ had to say about Mitt Romney. The only reason he paid 13% is because he voluntarily contributed more than he had to. He actually only had to pay less than 10%, and I'm quite sure he's now amending his tax return to get that extra 4% back.
Now, TJ, let me play devil's advocate, though. There's been a lot of tributes this week to Margaret Thatcher, and one of the things she did was lower the tax rate for the wealthy in England, and a lot of people said that that was huge because it brought people back. There's a brain drain. People leave the country if it's too high.
Yes, but people forget, and American conservatives especially always forget. Yes, she lowered taxes all the way down to 60%. That's what she considered a fair rate, 60%. There's not a liberal Democrat anywhere in the country, in the U.S., advocating we go all the way up to 60%. So as a lot of commentators have noticed, British conservatives are actually more liberal than American liberals. So you've got to look at the starting point and the ending point.
Okay, well, we've branched out to Britain. We threw out some of these numbers of other countries. Is there anything the U.S. can learn from other countries in terms of taxation? And I'll start with you, Mark.
One thing we have to do.
Yes, we need fairer taxation.
Well, I'll start with TJ. Go ahead, TJ.
We need to get rid of the artificial distinction between earned income and unearned income. So these hedge fund billionaires don't end up paying a lower rate than their secretaries. We also need to realize there's more than one type of income tax. A payroll tax is a tax on your income. And right now, it's unfair that people don't have to pay after the first 113,000. If you got rid of that cap and had a flat tax on payroll taxes, you would solve all the Social Security problems this country will ever face.
Mark, I see you bobbing your head. Are there other countries that you think we could model things after?
Well, I think we should have to do more in our country. I mean, TJ's right. The payroll tax carries almost as much revenue as the individual income tax. Conservatives are only complaining about the individual income tax because it's progressive, whereas the payroll tax is regressive. The average American pays 7.5%, but if you are a millionaire, you pay less than 1%. And then, of course, there's corporate taxes. Conservatives are always complaining that corporate taxes are charged 35%. But 70% of American corporations pay no taxes whatsoever. If we charge all American corporations 25%, they actually could increase what they give to the government 2.5 times.
We're just about out of time, but I want to give both of you about 20 seconds to answer this question. There was so much talk before the start of this year about a grand bargain, and tax reform was definitely a big part of that. Really kind of reforming the tax code, going after things. And TJ, let me start with you. Any chance that's ever going to happen?
Not as long as there are this many Republicans certainly controlling the House and having the ability to filibuster in the Senate, because the one element of religion that is believed fervently among Republicans is that the greatest sin in the world is if a wealthy person were to ever pay another penny in tax.
I actually think there is room for reform. And look at the corporate tax code. Again, we could lower that rate from 35 to 25%. And if everybody paid, the government would still get 2.5 times as much. So one of the main things I would do is not allow people to put all that money abroad the way many American corporations do. Charge them taxes for it, and we get a lot more money from corporations.
Mark, thank you very much. TJ, thank you so much for joining us in New York. Certainly appreciate it.